sometimes drummers will get up and they're just got their eyes shut and they're playing away, and I'm trying to get them to bring it down. And if you're not watching whoever is directing the jam, whether it be a singer or a guitar player, and most guitar players would signal each other when you finish your solo, you're going to look at the next soloist and pass it on to them. And if some people aren't aware, I'll just, being the singer, I got the mic, I'll say, and, so-and-so is going to play next, and I'll announce it or tap them on the shoulder because I'm a little freer not holding an instrument.
One of the essential skills of playing with musicians in any scenario, whether you're playing in a band or you're on stage at jam night, maybe even more so on stage at jam night when you're playing with musicians that you don't know or you're not familiar with, is communication. Okay? Communication between musicians is so crucial of a point. When you get up on stage, once you're plugged in and you're good to go, make sure you turn and look at the other guys in the band. Don't stand there and look around at the audience and, doing this. Make sure when you're ready to go, you look right at the other players. That's a great time to make sure you know the song you're doing. If you're doing Stormy Monday in G, you should look at them and go, Stormy Monday in G, right? Make sure that is... that's the time that you do that. It's right when you get on stage. Also, if they've got a question or there's a problem, that's a good time to address that situation, right? So the communication is really, really important. But communication can go for a lot of things. Sometimes the communication has got to do with a point we're going to make in the live section where we're talking about communication during the song. Because when we're playing, we don't want to just ignore the rest of the guys in the band and look somewhere else, right? We want to actually be engaged with them. Certain things come up, like who's going to take the solo. That's a really important thing. Let me talk about that for a minute. When you have several guitar players up there, who takes the solo and how do you know? Sometimes you'll find out ahead of time. Sometimes they'll say, all right, you take the first solo, I'll take the second solo. Sax player will take the third solo. That's, sometimes that happens. Usually it doesn't though. Usually you just start jamming, and when it comes your turn to solo, somebody might give you a nod. It may be as subtle as that, so you got to be watching right before the solo for the nod, Next question would be, how long do I solo? And let me just stop there and say, if you are just a rhythm player or if you are just a beginner and you don't feel comfortable playing a solo at all, that's fine. Just tell them when you get up there and we got our first communication going, when you first get on stage, let them know, look, I don't feel comfortable soloing, I'm just going to play rhythm. It's better to do it then as opposed to waiting till, in the middle of the song when somebody looks at you and gives you a nod to solo and you go, no, we don't want that. We don't want to have, that'll be a train wreck on stage. So let them know if you don't want to solo, but if you do, how long should the solo be? Usually there's not an exact length, especially at a blues jam, it's kind of whatever. It depends upon the length or the speed of the song. If it's a real fast song, a 12-bar chunk will go by pretty quickly. So you might solo a little bit longer. If it's a really slow song, you don't want to solo too long. Maybe just one time through the 12-bar, phrase will work. I would say probably the most common is like 2 passes through. That's probably what I would call maybe a standard, if there was a standard, and there really isn't. So that's going to be just the most common way to do it. So 24 bars, basically, 2 times through the 12-bar cycle would be your solo. Now, if you don't have enough licks to fill up that 24 bars, it's better to do a shorter solo. It's always much better to play a short solo. That way, if you're not comfortable with it, do your short solo, and then, get out of there. Remember, there's no such thing as a bad short solo. So if you get up and play a little short solo, even if it's not the best, it's fine. It's only when you ramble on and won't ever stop, okay? So make sure when you're up there playing, keep it pretty short. 24 bars, or maybe even 12 bars, keep it short. Now, believe me, if my band was here, they would be laughing at me talking about playing short solos because they think my solos are all 5 minutes long and ramble on and on and on. But in my defense, I can only say that if your band is named after you, then you can solo as long as you want. But if you're at jam night, just keep it short and sweet.